We'll call this meeting the Clackamas Regional Water Supply Commission to order. Would everybody stand and follow me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Cindy, would you take the roll, please?
Commissioner Blake?
Here.
Commissioner Kalani?
Here.
Commissioner Platt? Absent. Commissioner Soa? Absent. Commissioner Weiss? Here. Commissioner Humberston?
Here. This is the opportunity for public comment. If there's anyone in the public that would like to speak to the board on issues that are not actually on the agenda, now is your chance. Please come forward and identify yourself.
I'll just speak up, I guess. There's no recording. My name is Pat Russell. I'm currently a Clackamas River Water Budget Committee member. I'm also on the Joint Authorities Budget Committee, at least as last spring I was for the budget. I'm also an active founding member of the North Clackamas Watershed Council. Much of the western part of the authority, Sunrise Authority, as well as kind of the western portion, north side of the Clackamas River water, is within our watersheds. It's the Mount Scott watershed. And the reason I mention that is that I wanted to thank our CRW board for allowing me to visit the Clackamas River here about a Saturday ago. And it was a delightful event, but I think what impressed upon me was that we do have a limited water resource. We have probably more users than the river can support if you combine fish and wildlife needs. And in the long term, over the next 20 to 50 year horizon, I would hope that we move toward the next level of professionalism, and that's conservation. That the water district takes the lead on conservation because some of the, quite a bit of the service areas of both districts are moving water basically out of the basin. It all ends up in the Willamette River, but because we're moving water away from the Clackamas resource, to me, we have opportunities to do some long-term planning on ways to encourage citizens through incentive programs to, number one, conserve water, as well as, since the landscape treatments in their yards is the biggest water user, we have a lot of properties in our districts that have been developed, and many of them over 10 years old. Some trees maturing, some places don't have trees, but it's in a stage where likely those homes need to be reinvigorated as far as landscape treatments. And it would seem to me that we could offer incentives so that they would go with landscape programs that are less water use, that are more native plant material, so that they're more resilient to the ups and the downs of the water resource that we have in the river. We're very fortunate we're not quite some of the southern latitudes as far as their problems, but and I'm not necessarily totally convinced of global warming, but I am convinced that we may have less snow, and even though we do have a volcanic basalt up in the upper areas of the river that will likely absorb quite a bit of water, I still think that the demand on the resource is going to be more pronounced as we go. So I just encourage the group, maybe not this year, but as part of the joint planning effort, and where you could combine your efforts together, consider that idea of developing a conservation program. I don't have any immediate recommendations. I sent some kind of off the top of the head comments to Mr. Moore here last week, but I just wanted to make mention of it, and I appreciate that discussion that did come up. The other one that really frightens me, and I think again the district has to play a key role here, is the Clackamas Industrial Sanctuary. We have probably over almost 24 public agencies who regulate activities in our industrial area, but there's no concerted, coordinated effort, and I'm concerned about safety, spills, air pollution that eventually ends up in our watershed, those types of things. And I think that the Water District could play a key role. And I know that the studies have been done in the past, and that's always an awareness, but I was impressed with the discussions by the tour group of about 35 people, where I think people recognize the importance of what's draining into the river, and we're all kind of downstream of where that all drains into. And the ag and the forestry and the nursery upstream, I mean, those are contributors too. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Pat. Just so that you're aware, the Regional Water Providers Consortium does an extensive amount of conservation advertising. You may well be aware of that. Okay. If you wanted to know more about it, I can give you the phone number of that organization, and they can tell you a lot about what they're doing. The next item we have on the agenda, on the business, if there's no other public comment, and I don't see anyone, is item number 1, insurance coverage for the commission. Mr. Hadlor or Mr. Moore?
Well, this is a topic we've had discussion in here prior, and it's come full circle back to the point now where I think we're able to start moving to take action. If you recall, and the reason we haven't pressed for it, it hasn't been necessarily a need to go out and press for insurance for the commission, but now as we begin to do a lot more activities together, we're getting much farther down the road as an integration thing, it's time and place for us to start doing that. And of course, the easiest way for us to do that would be to join in Special Districts Association of Oregon to allow for that insurance coverage. When the commission was formed, and because of the prior history, particularly on CRW side, no offense in this regard, but the history was there, and it was clear at the time that SDO made some very clear stipulations about what they wanted to see from us legally in order to allow for that insurance coverage to take place. And the first was to go back and readdress potentially the indemnification clause in the original agreement, the 190 agreement that was signed, and either make amendments to it to basically take out what they perceived are potential loopholes where each of the entities could enjoin the other one in the parties in the process, or simply remove it as one of the stipulations as part of their process. But to fix that portion of the agreement to allow for them to put appropriate coverages of insurance in place. And then also to exempt coverage for a couple of activities associated with potential ethics claims and what's the other? Injunctive relief. And CRW, I believe, through its board action, has already agreed to set aside funds to provide for the self-insurance as was negotiated in the formation of this body, right, for the latter pieces of it, which were to set aside self-insurance funds for potential coverage for ethics claims or injunctive relief. Right? So the last piece of that then is to fix the indemnity clause. And so this body can't do that because the parties which formed the original 190 were both separately the CRW Board of Commissioners as well as the Sunrise Water Authority Board of Commissioners. And so I think the appropriate action is for us, this group, to make a recommendation back to those two boards. And then by law, we're allowed to pass a resolution to amend the 190 with the appropriate language changes that are suggested in here for that indemnity change, and then have the two boards approve that and amend the 190 accordingly. And that should take care of the process of getting free and clear, if you will, for opportunity to be covered by SDA for insurance.
Is there a motion to make that recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay. Discussion. Questions by any board member?
Well, being as how I was on one of the group that put this together, we wrangled through that many times, back and forth, and we had legal counsel for both sides, and they were both trying to protect their side, and so we came up with something that was as we find out today, somewhat cumbersome. So I think that today we're past that. We're working together and very cooperative. And so I see that there's no reason why we should not recommend to rewrite it.
Okay. Anyone else? Hugh?
No, I'm good with it. I don't have the past experience in history that some of the other folks are going to have, fortunately.
And I think those of us on the CRW board understand the complicated nature of our past, so it's understandable why it has to go this direction also. Deanna, do you have any comment?
No, I have no.
In that case, we'll call the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Unanimous. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Hatton. The next item we have on our agenda tonight is the general manager's update regarding integration of the two agencies. So, would it be Mr. Hathorn or Mr. Moore?
All right, I'll jump in again and sort of lead off this discussion because I'm kind of the architect of some of this. And what we tended to try to do is, if you recall, this board has asked the general managers to provide them, at least during these quarterly meetings, an update as to the integration activities. What's going on, what's taking place, some of the larger pieces of it, not probably every, you don't need to have a phone log or whatever thing you have in any part of it, but what's really happening in terms of that integration, where there are potential cost savings, and then attempt to try to put some documentation to support that as part of that. So this is our first attempt to do that. So this is our first report on the integration of Sunrise and CRW under the new commission as part of that. And voted to try to lay out, and with Ms. Brick's help, we also have an annotated summary of what went on in here. I hope I said your name right. Right, sorry. Okay, I'll get used to that, okay? I'll only have to be corrected once. I won't remember his trike. What's a good one, though?
Right to the track.
Miss Bright, I'm sorry, okay, I stand corrected, has helped put together some language for the actual integration activities. And then I attempted to try to put together a table which helped to try to put some value, if you will, again looking at putting some of the value to it. Now I admit that maybe some of my engineering came through and it's a little more complicated than that spreadsheet could be, but I tried to make it as simple as I could. And it's hard, it's really difficult to, in a lot of these activities, to actually assign a value, but I attempted to try to do that. Some of them is obvious where physical labor or equipment are being shared. Okay, that's pretty simple. But there are other things that are going on as well too, and I tried to sort of encapsulate all of that as part of this process in here.
I think we can accept the idea that it's your best educated guess.
It is. There is
That's
some
fair enough.
there is
At this
some
point in time.
latitude, okay, in terms of putting some of this together. I try to be as accurate as I can as this, but I don't think that it's necessarily would pass the muster test of, you know, accounting standards with regards to an audit or something. But nonetheless, it's a pretty good business planning sort of level estimation of some of the activities that are going on in there. What I can tell you is that, you know, Lee and I have met unified and together with all the major functioning groups within the two entities, and we have basically brought them together to say, look, we look to you to help us understand how we should go about putting this together. We're not talking about them making labor assignments, all those other kind of things, but more process-related things. Where should we take the opportunity, for instance, to take advantage of certain things that you know about or are within your control to do so? A good example would be, you know, some of the simple things up front are, you know, beginning to coordinate how we put together a geographic information system and data management sharing and hardware and software tools and all those pieces that go along with all those portions of it. All the way down to how we go about creating reports, how we would organize the storage of those reports and file recovery and all those kind of things. And those conversations are all happening right now with the goal of coming back to you, as we indicated, of a plan of that integration that will be executed over these next couple of years. And so that is the real goal of what our first steps are as part of this process. And things have already started off happening. Examples include We're now sharing labor and resources and doing water quality sampling. And you'll see the rest of them listed in here. Most of them are all listed in here. We're doing that through the engineering portion of it. We're doing it in the accounting portion of it. A new facet to this recently, and it's now public. For instance, the financial director at Sunrise, Ms. Ragudo, has announced her retirement by the end of the year. And I think it would be certainly my recommendation and Lee's recommendation that we look to try to take advantage of Ms. Brike's resources and capabilities. Got it right, so I remember right. And put those together and allow Ms. Bright to oversee the financial accounting for both organizations. I'm going to put that together as a recommendation before the Sunrise Board, so that's something that's still to come. But then we would then put together a joint financial accounting team to oversee both of the entities through the shared resources. So when they come up, we're trying to take advantage of the opportunity to move forward together in a unified approach.
Could you give us a guesstimate of what the salary savings would be under that scenario?
Well, you're going to try to pin me in the corner.
That's why I said guesstimate.
Yeah, well, Lynn's salary is around 80. I can't remember, 80 or 90,000 bucks a year plus the overhead that goes with it in terms of her retirement and everything. So it would be 120,000 bucks. But that doesn't answer the full question about when Lynn were to leave and Carol were to assume the oversight responsibilities. We may have to hire a mid-level accountant to fill in some of the resources that are necessary. That's not yet been determined. Okay. But we don't intend to refill that senior position. So it could be something lesser of a portion of that salary if we were to go back and have to hire additional staffing resources to execute the day-to-day functions as part of that process. So we would make a determination after we got things together whether or not that was necessary. But the goal would be that at least at that senior position, we would not replace somebody at both sides of the fence with that portion of it. So it could be all of it or some portion of it, depending on how it's put down.
While not trying to pin you down, because I understand that this is your best guesstimate at this point in time, I asked that question and others very similar to it simply because one of the primary aspects, as we all know, putting this organization together was that there would be savings for the ratepayers as time went on. Right. And at some point in time, those kind of hard numbers are numbers that I believe everybody on this board is going to need when we talk to our constituents. So they can say, yes, this worked, this is where the savings are, this is where the efficiencies are, and this is how the teams are working together. So I just say that so that you understand kind of what the objective is.
No, I understand that fully. It's been made very clear from the get-go that was what this board was after in terms of being able to document and also in terms of this long-term objective. And we agree that that's exactly what we're after. And that goes all the way down to the point where in this process, recently Sunrise had a scheduled replacement of a pipeline. Instead of going out and getting equipment that was necessary to do that construction ourselves, we went and borrowed a truck and a driver and a backhoe from CRW in that process. And so it's happening at all kinds of levels right now. And staff is being encouraged to expand that. Plans are being in place right now to actually move things as much as the SCADA and control systems together in the next couple of weeks, move the IT and hardware platforms all together in the next month or two. And so lots of stuff is happening. Okay, so that integration is happening.
And I think the bigger, the issue is trying to understand how each entity does their work. And that takes more time. I think it's really easy to just say, okay, you go over there and you go over there. But I think the other thing that comes out of this, and I think the financial position is a good one, is rather than run out and fill it, the real question is there an opportunity here? What does it look like? Because it goes beyond the two positions. It really goes to the rest of CRW's financial staff. And are there some opportunities there as well in terms of accounts payables, accounts receivable, and the like? So you just don't stop at the one position, you have to look beyond that. And so spending more time on the front end analysis is really what we're doing now. In some of these cases, Sunrise may be holding off a little bit until we can
finish that analysis. So you have a cost.
Before we go a little further, is there any
cost
questions by
avoidance.
anybody else?
No, I specifically
I have a
studied.
question.
Go ahead.
Are the systems that are now currently in use, are they compatible?
Well, I think that's kind of an oxymoron, because most of our systems are not, they're not current per se, because CRW is in a position where we've been advised that sometime between now and the next couple of years, that, for example, Eden or the Tyler Corporation is not going to support the Eden platform. So CRW is in a situation where we're looking at replacing our platform. Sunrise is already in the process of replacing their accounting platform. So one of the things we've talked about is having Ms. Bright go over and help manage the implementation of Sunrise's system, so that we have a better opportunity to see whether or not that platform is compatible to our needs as well. So I'm not trying to duck your question, but it's both systems need to be upgraded. And so this is a prime opportunity then to see if there's some compatibility there that can be.
Yeah, so there are a number of systems that are and there aren't, as you mentioned, but the ones that aren't are interesting. Most of them are in necessary need of upgrade, so the opportunity exists now for us to go out and put them together. We don't have to tear much apart to do it.
And Ron, you had something?
Yeah, I just gonna say, that's one of the things that was foremost in the talks when we first started this process years ago, was trying to bring it together, the IT computer programs, so that you could get, instead of each entity owning this huge expensive program and operating it, you could bring them together and cut costs by whatever to each side, and ultimately to the ratepayer.
One of the things I think that really needs to be mentioned here is that both entities may experience an uptick in costs getting to where we need to be in order to realize longer-term savings. For example, the Eden system that we have, which is our financial system, is really overstated for CRW's needs. So even if we were going to stay put, it's really a system that's designed for cities the size of Portland. But, and so when it was installed, it was a very painful process. And I think staff kind of gave up on the system and installed it enough to make it work, and that was it, and they stopped. And so now that we've been advised that the system is not going to be supported longer term, it's an opportunity for us to come back and resize, even if Sunrise was not on the horizon. So I think that you would have that expense. And so now the issue is, can we be smarter about it and see how we can get economies of scale between the two organizations?
We still have that agreement in place that if we do decide to go with their system, that there's that discounted price.
Yeah, we Sunrise, when they bought into Springbrook, and Wade can address this more specifically, we put the hook in that would give us that discount.
Okay, so that's still in play. Deanna, did you have anything?
No.
Okay.
One last question. Changing over to this newer system, whichever it is, Springbrook or whatever, is there any sort of guarantee of the lifespan of the system itself before it has to be converted to something else, or it's canceled by the provider, or what?
Well, the problem with technology systems is, the lifespan. Some would say is if you use the Intel model, is about 18 months. But obviously, that's
Lord,
not
no. You can't afford that.
But I have enough experience in government that anything that is temporary is for life. And so, no, we can't guarantee that.
Okay.
But we know that it'll be more than 18 months. It'll probably be, 3, 4, 5 years. And the way that software is evolving, your you're trying to get away from server-based technologies, more cloud-based technologies. But, you know, there's a high likelihood that even cloud-based systems, longer term, may be obsolete. So, you know, you kind of go where the market takes you with this stuff. Yes.
Just from the perspective of Springbrook, it is a cloud-based system, and they do pretty much continual upgrades. So the system that Sunrise is purchasing now, or actually purchased through the commission, Sunrise is paying for their portion of it, might not look the same in 5 years, but you know, it's still likely to be the Springbrook system with whatever upgrades. And a lot of the time, because they can act so quickly and nimbly, they take advice or recommendations from their users. And so many of those enhancements that they do throughout the life of the program are things that the users say, wow, this would be really great if it could. And so those things end up in the next iteration, or, you know, 3 or 4 iterations after that.
And those upgrades, do you normally have to purchase the upgrade, or is it kind of like Apple, where you get some increase in improved operating systems quite a number of times before you really have to make a costly jump?
There's an annual maintenance cost that you pay, and because you pay that annual maintenance cost, then you get the upgrades when they happen. And particularly with the cloud-based system, they give that upgrade to everybody. So when they're ready to upgrade, it upgrades, and everybody gets the benefit of that.
Another one for you?
No, I'm fine.
But to answer your question, as much as the world is changing today very quickly to, this will be the platform in the future, and you won't even use a laptop fairly soon. You'll be in this, and everybody's talking about the Internet of Things now, where you're, you know, fully connected to whatever systems you are in that. We're trying to anticipate where we could be more flexible, though, when we're making software technology development, that we would be investing in the opportunity to be a part of that potentially in the future versus, you know, taking traditional hardware, installing it on a server, and leaving it in a room somewhere and trying to manage it on your own kind of thing. I think those days are long gone fairly soon as part of that process. So that's my opinion. And we have attempted to try to begin looking at getting away from that type of environment.
Yeah, you look at, when I came here 6 years ago, I think we had 26 servers. We're down to 12, and that's antiquated technology now. So the next move is to go off servers altogether.
Do we have, does CRW have bill pay, mobile bill pay?
I'm sorry.
Does CRW have mobile bill pay? Can you swipe your account and, no?
No, we use a virtual merchant, so when somebody calls to make a payment on the phone, my staff just keys in the number, and that makes the payment. We also have online payment, where people can go actually to the website and click on a pay your bill button, and it takes them directly to their account. They get information about their account and can make the payment. I believe Sunrise has an online payment system as well.
We put a payment system in place, and we'll be putting a payment system in place, which has a phone app, and for that payment system specifically for Androids and for iPhones and as well too, so that customer can actually get into their account very readily without having to go to a web browser first to get onto that system to get in. They can just go directly to that payment server itself. Yeah. But the idea that we're attempting to try to follow, if we can, is that we sort of created the ATM experience. You know, you get 90% of what you need in that first sort of round of things that you can do by pushing a few buttons, right? And get most of what you want done. And if you need somebody, we're around, right? You can always walk into the bank, right?
Anything else, Wade, or you want to continue?
No, yeah, I mean, we try to put that there, so I just open it up for questions, and then you can kind of see the broad range of activities that are going on in each of the major functions within each of the organizations. They involve, you know, a full range of everything from staffing and resources to contractual matters.
Anybody have any more questions of the general managers regarding this report?
I thought it was pretty good.
I just have one. You mentioned that you've been meeting with all of the different departments. You had also mentioned that probably the most, I'm not sure if difficult's the right word, but the area where we need to be the most careful is in the fact that we have a unionized workforce and SWA does not. Have you begun working on how that process or transition will be worked, or is that still premature?
We left the specific union issue for last.
Okay.
But we have looked at all the non-unionized functions, even at CRW, and said that that doesn't prevent us from looking at those activities, which the bulk of the things that you see here are the non-unionized activities.
Okay.
The other caveat is that as long as the union workforce is, like Wade gave the example of the pipe, as long as we're moving in that direction, we've been advised by council that we're okay. The union's interest is when you start taking jobs away from the union workers that there's a concern, and we haven't done that yet.
So we found, if you will, safe ground in Sunrise borrowing unionized labor up to now. So we've done so. And we have consciously over at Sunrise left labor resources relatively short to fulfill all the needs that are necessary to get it done in anticipation of taking advantage of the opportunity to put that together.
And I realize that is probably the most difficult issue to address, and we certainly don't want to be stepping on employee rights. So if that's as far as we've gotten, that's fine. I'm just curious to see.
We've indicated before that one of the things that we had for most of the groups that we've shown here is that they're putting together position papers for Wade and I that are due by the end of December. And so we should have a little bit more specifics by then, although it won't be completed, but it will look a little bit more complete when you see it at the end of December.
Just a thought, talking about this. What happens this winter when emergency services that require joint participation, the two units that are involved, and there's no agreement as to how that's handled specifically, is there? I mean, you're talking about a plan being developed in the process. How do you handle that? I'm just curious.
Well, first of all, that's one of the reasons why the whole emergency management COOP planning, we put that under one individual, Don Mundier. And nothing prevents, when you use the word emergency, then all bets are off. You have a lot more opportunity. It did come up in collective bargaining, and we basically have said to the union that that's non-negotiable. When there's an emergency, you get resources from wherever you can.
Any other questions? If we have no other questions, do you have anything else to add to your presentation?
I do not.
The next item on our agenda is director's report.
No.
Do you?
Speak for me.
The next item on our agenda is director's reports. Do any of the directors have anything to report? I'll simply reiterate what Pat said earlier, and I think Hugh would agree that it was very, I guess you would say, educational, informative, and enjoyable to take that river float and look at the river from that perspective.
That was the one on the floor.
Yes.
One thing to talk about past concerns, basically the water districts have been doing conservation training for years. Go into the grade schools. We've had employees, and that is part of their job, to go into the grade schools and teach conservation to the, I think, second, third, and fourth graders. And over the years, our water usage has dropped considerably because of the conservation that they are taking home and teaching to the parents. And if it keeps going the way it is, we're gonna have to raise rates just to pay for the conserved water. But that is something that we, as water providers, have been doing for a number of years. That's not to say that we've done all we can do or that there's not more to do, but it is something that we have been doing.
Anything else from anyone? Hearing none? We'll adjourn. Staff, thank you very much for attending and realizing